Što znači biti Božji izabrani narod? Izgleda, onda ipak su bez obzira na sve oni izabrani narod.
Okay. Wait for Goran. Why? Why?
He's in the middle of the theological debate.
Ne znam.
All right. Now, the most difficult part of the book of Romans is chapters 9, 10, and 11.
Najteži dio poslanice Rimljanima su poglavlja 9, 10 i 11.
I think the question that holds chapters 9, 10, and 11 together is,
I mislim da ima jedno pitanje koje drži ta tri poglavlja.
what does it mean to be God's chosen people?
A to je što to znači biti Božji izabrani narod.
Paul is a Jew.
Pavao je Židom.
Most of the first century church was Jewish.
Većina crkve u prvom stoljeću bila je židovska.
And it's not until after the 70s, really, that you get more Gentiles than Jews in the church.
Tek nakon 70. godina prvog stoljeća počinju prevladavati nežidovi.
So the question of who are God's chosen people was a question that would be in the minds of the Jewish Christians.
I dakle, to pitanje tko je zapravo Božji izabrani narod bilo bi njima na umu, židovskim kršćanima.
And the things that Paul has said in Romans don't match their understanding of the law and God's promises.
A ono što je Pavao rekao Rimljanima ne poklapa se s njihovim razumijevanjem.
Now here are some of the problems that you run into in chapters 9, 10, and 11.
Evo nekih problema koje tu susrećemo.
And we're going to deal with the first three, really.
A mi ćemo se baviti sa prva tri.
There's two slides, so there's three on this slide, but then there's three more on the next slide.
Znači ima tri pitanja ovdje i tri na sljedećem.
And so the question of how chapters 9, 10, 11 relate to the rest of the book.
Kako su poglavlja 9 do 11 povezana sa prvim dijelom posla?
What do these chapters teach about predestination and foreknowledge?
Što ta poglavlja govore o predodređenosti i predznanju?
And when Paul uses the word Israel, does he mean the nation of Israel or spiritual Israel, which is the church, the people of God, regardless of nation, whatnot?
I kada Pavao koristi riječ Izrael, da li misli doslovno na izraelski narod ili duhovni Izrael?
Or is Paul inconsistent?
I da li je Pavao dosljedan sa tim terminima?
What are God's plans for the nation of Israel?
Koji su Božji planovi za Izrael?
All Israel will be saved is a statement Paul makes in chapter 11, verse 26 that often confuses people.
Pavao kaže u 11:26 spasit će se cijeli Izrael i to često zbunjuje ljude.
What in the world does he mean when he says that?
Na koga točno misli?
And then how does the salvation of Israel relate to Jesus' return and the end of the world?
I kako se spasenje Izraela povezuje s Isusovim povratkom i početkom svijeta?
We'll get through a lot of those questions tonight, I think, maybe.
Mislim da ćemo puno toga dotaknuti večeras.
The first question is, how do chapters 9 through 11 relate to the rest of the book?
Dakle, prvo, kako se ova poglavlja povezuju sa ostatkom poslanice?
Now, we said several weeks ago that Martin Luther treated chapters 1 through 8 and then chapters 12 through 16 as this complete laying out of the Christian life.
Rekli smo već da je Martin Luther smatrao da poglavlja 1 do 8 i onda 12 do 16 opisuju čitav kršćanski život.
And he basically just ignores chapters 9, 10, and 11.
I on je jednostavno zanemario 9 do 11 poglavlja.
John Calvin, on the other hand, treated 9, 10, and 11 as a theological discourse about predestination.
A Calvin je pak smatrao da su poglavlja 9 do 11 teološka rasprava o predodređenju.
N.T. Wright and some of the more modern scholars treat chapters 9, 10, and 11 as the central part of the book.
A N.T. Wright I još neki suvremeni teolozi smatraju da su ova poglavlja središte poslanice.
This is the group that's called the New Perspective on Paul.
I oni se nazivaju nova perspektiva o Pavlu.
I think the best way to treat chapters 9, 10, and 11 is just as a natural answer to chapters 1 through 8.
Mislim da je najbolje gledati na ova poglavlja kao na prirodan odgovor na poglavlja 1 do 8.
So in chapters 1 through 3, you have God sending the law so that everyone knows that they can't obey it.
U prva 3 poglavlja vidjeli smo da je Bog poslao zakon da bi svi shvatili da ne mogu biti poslušni.
And the final verse of that, chapter 3, verse 20, where he says God gave the law so that everybody would know that they were, through the law comes consciousness of sin.
U 3:20 je rekao, po zakonu imamo spoznaju grijeha.
And then the second section, chapter 3, verse 21 through the end of chapter 8, that means salvation has to be by grace through faith.
A onda od 3:21 pa do 8. poglavlja govori o spasenju koje je po milosti I po vjeri.
Now, Paul's Jewish readers get to this point and say that's not what the law is for.
A Pavlovi židovski čitatelji mogli su reći, ali ne, zakon ne služi tome.
Because that's not how they understood salvation and the law.
Jer oni nisu tako gledali na spasenje I na zakon.
They understood that the law made them special, and part of them being special was that they had this good relationship with God regardless of how they behaved.
Oni su smatrali da ih zakon čini posebnima I da su u dobrom odnosu s Bogom bez obzira na to kako se ponašaju.
That's an overstatement, but it's semi-accurate.
I tu sam malo pretjerao, ali to je otprilike to.
So Israel thought that the promises came through the law,
Izraelci su smatrali da obećanja dolaze kroz zakon.
and because they had the law, even if they didn't perfectly obey it.
I s obzirom da su imali zakon, čak I ako ga se nisu savršeno držali.
But Paul says God saves people apart from the law.
A Pavao ovdje kaže da Bog spašava ljude bez obzira na zakon.
And to the Jewish readers, that's a contradiction of everything they've believed.
A židovskim čitateljima to je proturječilo svemu što su oni vjerovali.
So doesn't that mean that God has broken his promises?
I onda postavljaju pitanje da li to znači da je Bog prekršio svoja obećanja.
That's the question that Paul's Jewish readers would have at this point.
To pitanje bi postavili židovski čitatelji Pavlu.
And Paul is going to respond to that, and I'll show you my outline for his response in just a minute.
I Pavao onda odgovara na to I ja ću vam pokazati kako.